Friends, welcome to this new episode. Today we have 3 stories that have absolutely nothing to do with each other, but as I always say, they're worth knowing, and each one of them has its own thing. Don't miss a second of these 3 stories. Just a reminder, you can send your experiences in audio to the WhatsApp number on the screen. The number and duration don't matter. You can add photos, videos, or anything needed to make your story complete. Then, if it's selected and I have any questions, I'll be contacting you. And I'm also letting you know that this coming Friday, the day after tomorrow, we're going to have a new episode of Stories from the Other Side with a new interview. And I would love for all of you to be there to get to know her. Before we begin, I want to thank everyone who joined the membership recently. There were really a lot of you, and I'm more than happy. So, simply thank you and welcome, of course, to being members of the Amigos channel. Now, let's not waste any more time and let's get started right away with these new paranormal stories. Welcome! I'm Facundo, and I want to share an experience from a few years ago that for some reason I've never told anyone. I don't know if it was a paranormal experience or something deeper that I can't understand, but I can swear to you that it was real. It happened to me and it still gives me goosebumps. I'm going to tell you about it in the next few minutes. From what I remember, what I felt, and what I still struggle to understand and process even today about such an event. Thank you for reading it and for giving space, above all, to those of us who carry things in our memory, things that don't always have an explanation. This is my story. What I'm about to tell you is not a story someone told me or something I heard. It happened to me, and even today when I remember it, something inside me chills my blood. Between 2019 and 2022, I was admitted to a therapeutic community. It was a long, intense process of rebuilding and, most importantly, healing. But what I want to tell you happened in the last 6 months of this treatment. When we moved to a new house the foundation acquired in Lisandro Olmos, Buenos Aires province. The house was huge, a country house with a veranda, a very, very long piece of land, where there was even, just to give you an idea of the size of the lot, a kind of improvised soccer field. The house was old, and not only that, it had been abandoned for many years, until the foundation took it over. So you can imagine it was in terrible condition, so much so that several months before we moved in, we, the patients ourselves, had gone to fix it up little by little. That is, cleaning, painting, mowing, trimming trees, and other tasks. It felt like peeling layers of neglect from a house that had given up over time. I remember that I was transferred right after Christmas. When I arrived, my therapeutic operator's mother and sister were visiting, and they had come from Cordoba with their children among them. And here I ask you to pay close attention, a 3-year-old boy named Pancho, with whom I connected right away. He was one of those nice, polite kids, very sharp, above all things for his age. And he had something else that caught my attention. I don't know what it was, even now. Other people also arrived, friends and family, right on time. Among them, from what I could see, there were 2 guys a little older than Pancho. And this is where things start to get weirder, and I ask you to pay attention. One afternoon, I go out to the porch and see Pancho, who was playing with one of those kids I mentioned before. He was older, but they both played there as if nothing was wrong. And look, the scene was completely normal. There was absolutely nothing that caught my attention. But there was something that was slipping by me, and I only realized it later when someone pointed it out to me. The afternoon passed, night came, and it was time for dinner. We were all gathered at the table, and the operator asked me if everyone was there so he could bring the food. So, at that moment, I looked around and realized that one of the kids was missing. So I shouted, "Is the other kid missing? The one who was playing with Pancho?" At that moment, Pancho's mother looked at me confused and asked, "Which kid are you talking about?" I smiled at her and said, "Sorry, I don't know the other one's name." She laughed a little nervously and said, "Look, I only have 2 kids, and today they didn't play together at all." In fact, Pancho was alone, and at that moment I stayed quiet. I couldn't tell if they were joking or if it was a misunderstanding, since I had seen both of them playing. Still, I stayed quiet. After dinner, the mother comes up to me and asks, "Facundo, who did you say Pancho was playing with today?" And I answered her exactly as I had seen it. He was with an older boy, he had a little white t-shirt, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I thought he was one of your kids or one of your friends. I didn't mean to offend. And then she gets serious and says to me, can I ask you a favor? Can you ask Pancho, like it's your own question, who were you playing with today? So I walked over, crouched down because he was on the floor playing with blocks, greeted him and asked, Pancho, how are you? Who were you playing with on the field today? He looks at me, smiles and says, with my friend German. The mother was stiff, but with a smile on her face as if she knew something about all of this. Curious, I asked, who is German Pancho? And then his face changed. It was like he got angry, looking at me seriously. He also looked at his mom through the blocks and shouted for us not to bother him. The mother immediately took him by the hand and told him, because I heard her, not to get upset, because I didn't know about this and I didn't want to bother him. So, that's when she told me that it wasn't the first time. And I wasn't the first person to see this boy on the property either. Since Pancho began visiting the facilities, he had been playing with German, a boy around 8 years old. But no one knew until then who it had been. And I say it in the past tense because it became more than clear that what appeared from time to time was his spirit. Honestly, I never saw that little boy in the white t-shirt again. Since that night, every time I went into the backyard, I felt watched from the tree. A large tree stood at the field's edge. Pancho kept playing with someone only he could see, even though it seemed impossible. And one day I even saw him talking in the gallery. He was alone, and without him noticing, I spied on him. He was speaking very softly to someone who was surely German. I want to tell you about some things that have happened at the Garrahan Children's Hospital. I'm an employee here, and people say a lot. Not just from the medical and administrative staff, but also, though it may seem obvious, among the security guards at this health center. And I'm writing this to you in order to contribute something to the channel and so that other people can also confirm that this is real, and also to encourage others to share news stories. To begin with, I want you to know that these are isolated episodes that I came to know, that I heard about, and that I also experienced myself. For example, the hospital basement has staff parking lots. In that place, very, very strange things usually happen, such as handprints appearing on the windows. And I'm not talking about adult hands, they're small as if they were children's. Many times you only see these marks, but so many other times they knock on the guardhouse. It's overwhelming and confusing to realize no one is outside, even though the marks usually remain. What's more, many co-workers claim to see a boy of about 6 years old or so running between the cars and disappearing right in front of the witness's eyes. Sometimes he runs, but other times he just watches you from afar. The boy stands still, staring at you as if trying to get your attention. And so you understand the magnitude of this. A security guard, after going through this, quit his job. With this, I want everyone to realize how difficult it is to witness a moment like this. A co-worker also describes seeing several children playing in the lab area early in the morning. It goes without saying that it's an area and a time when it's empty. Therefore, and beyond the fact that it's a children's hospital, children have no access of any kind. Many years ago, a professional from this health center had a serious problem with his partner. It was about feelings, but he was left so distraught that he decided to end his life. But since that night, many people claim to see him walking through different areas and disappearing as if he were vapor. A co-worker who was on night duty saw him walk down a hallway, and without fear, she approached where he was supposed to be. But she found herself completely alone. Once again, he had disappeared. The characteristic, and this is what everyone agrees on, is that he appears with a calm expression and wearing the same uniform he wore that night, where he made his final decision. There are areas, and this actually happened to me, where strange things occur. For example, there are failures in the radios. Specifically, they start emitting the beeps you hear when you turn the device on or off, and the indication of the frequency or when it changes, without touching the buttons or the knobs. And this only happens in very specific places and to different people with their own personal equipment, which confirms that all of this is more than strange. Something even more interesting happens in the technical mezzanine. It's between the ground floor and the first floor, and there's a lot of activity there. From noises of things falling or being dragged, for example, in places where there is nothing, I mean they're literally empty. And what's more, At night, no one enters this area. Many people claim to see a woman in red and black wandering aimlessly. No one knows who she is or why she shows up there. In another area which is closer to the morgue, shadows of adults and children have been seen on several occasions. And I can tell you from my own experience that walking in that place is something horrible. You feel like you literally can't breathe and someone is with you at all times. Honestly, I've only been working here for a few months and I would love to know if there are more stories. I'm sure there are, and I'll likely get to know them over time. I'm from Salta and live here with my family. And a few years ago, my husband had to go pick up a car in a town in Jujuy, the neighboring province. The thing is, we had to go in our own vehicle. And even though I didn't like the idea, I had to drive back alone and at night. That's how I started the way back. My husband was planning to leave a few hours later, so on the road and in the car I would be completely alone. Without wasting time on details that might be boring, in an instant I was on the straightaway. Let's remember it was nighttime, so in those areas it's very dark, although you could see pretty well because of the moon. The thing was that at one point I looked to my left and saw a horse running right next to the field. In that area they grow sugarcane and this horse was running extremely fast, but that's not all. Behind it there was a huge shadow that was chasing it. He couldn't keep his eyes fixed since he was driving, but he kept glancing over, trying to understand what was happening. And it's exactly as I'm about to tell you now. It was a desperate horse, running away from something that I'm going to describe as best as I can. Its size was enormous, almost as big as the horse itself. Its shape, however, was that of a dog. It was dark with very long fur, and what scared me the most was that I couldn't see its head at any moment. It was just its body chasing this poor horse in the middle of the field. I was so scared that I fixed my eyes on the road and tried to just focus on that. I slowed down because a car was fairly close in front of me, and it was at that moment that tragedy almost caught up with me. This car in front of me crashes into something. I thought it was another vehicle that had crossed into our lane or something like that, but no, not at all. I braked, swerved aside and got out to help. Other cars also started to stop to help those involved in the accident. Luckily, nothing happened to them, but what they told me gave me chills. They didn't know what they hit. They were sure it was an animal that suddenly appeared from the left, but there was no trace of it anywhere. But it was plain to see that the front of the car was pretty badly damaged. And one detail is that the horse I saw being chased was in front. That is, it had never crossed the road. That was it. After a few hours, I arrived home in Salta and tried to calm down. When my husband arrived, he asked me if I had seen this accident. I told him all of this in detail, and only he and now you know about it. I kept it to myself, fearing they'd think I was crazy. Honestly, it's hard for me to process everything that happened and what I saw that night. It was something terrifying and also incredible. Maybe, and the listeners will decide that later. The legend of the familiar is the closest explanation for what happened to me that night, though I'll never know for sure.